Hi everyone, today I'm going to tell you about my predictions for the week of April 29th. And first and those are based on astrology and mostly transits. First, let's do a quick recap of the predictions for the last week and see how many of them have come true, if any. So my predictions for the market directions were correctly as 3 days of the week. Specifically, I thought that market will pretty much be going down all last week, and it did go down on Monday and Wednesday, and stocks were mixed on Thursday, but primarily down, especially Dow Jones. The market did go up on Tuesday and Friday. On Friday, it did go up, I suppose, somewhat according to my prediction. I did expect that there would be a big drop, sort of like a V-shaped drop, and I thought that the drop would be more on Thursday and or Friday with recovery on Monday, and the drop was mostly on Wednesday, Thursday, and recovered by Friday and Monday, the 29th of April, which is when I'm recording this video, is actually gone up again as predicted. So basically there was a V-shaped drop. It wasn't as big as I would have expected. However, it did occur, and it was, like I said, on Wednesday, Thursday, rather than more like Thursday or Thursday, Friday. So let's see. And on Tuesday, I thought it would be a day of a large stock market move. I did think it would be down. However, it was up. But the actual size of the move was significant, particularly for NASDAQ. So let's see, for other predictions for last week, I guess the ongoing predictions are associated with the transit of Pluto and Saturn conjunction in Capricorn. And the other main aspect last week was square between Mars and Neptune. And according to that, I had predicted, again, ongoing kind of probability of earthquakes, disasters, and then particularly associated with Mars and Neptune, continue attacks that affect either anything that has to do with Neptune, so like Navy officers, for example, or religious figures or religious places, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, problems with healthcare that involve some fever, rashes, and or problems with fire, Mars on the one side, but maybe something like oil, Neptune on the other side, or chemicals or water. And because of that strong sort of Saturnian and Capricornian influence, I thought that it would affect like really cold places a lot, and what I have, or I would say more than usual. And so what I have seen as far as the news for last week, there was some attack in off of the coast of Somalia, and of course it's not that it never happens. It's just that apparently this was the first attack in like 2 years and happened to be last week. Likely it was thwarted. There was also attack in California, and I believe it was in San Diego, where 1 killed and 3 people were injured at the synagogue by a gunman. Again, Mars has to do with like fires, explosions, guns, and Neptune has to do with places of worship, religion, etc. And when we have a square, often we hear about attacks, again, either by like Navy SEALs or people with mental issues, and or places themselves, maybe by water or somehow Neptune related, which I thought that could be, for example, like a movie theater or something, and or could be, a church or whatever. So let's see, there was also news, and again, apparently there was a Navy SEAL, Edward Gallagher, that is currently, I guess he is in prison or something like that, or is awaiting trial for accused of some war crimes. And this is not new. However, the news last week that came up was about 7 other Navy SEALs that are looking to testify against him. And that hearing was on Tuesday of last week, again in California, in San Diego actually as well. There was interesting also news that I saw about a massive fire at the fridge factory at the ballistic missile plant in Siberia. And I thought that was an interesting kind of a sort of summary of this aspect where we had Mars and Neptune, and as well as the Pluto and Saturn and Capricorn. So we have like this really cold place, or at least a place that produces things that meant to keep things cold. And of course Siberia is like a cold place, maybe not at this particular moment in time, but in general, but fridge, ice, water, and we have fire at a factory, and again, fire and ballistic, of course, missile plant, all of those would be ruled by Mars. Additionally, there were some other news about fires in Siberia. Apparently, quite a few animals, unfortunately, over 4,000 domestic animals were killed in the Russia's Trans-Baikal wildfires, as well as many just like wild animals as well, unfortunately. So again, fires in a cold place, and I did make predictions that there would be some disasters in places that again are cold, or somehow disasters would be associated with cold weather. So another news that I see is that, again, I'm not sure how sort of significant it is on a world scale. However, it is an interesting, again, sort of manifestation of the Mars square Neptune aspect, where again we have water and fire and they don't mix. And again, ongoing, this Saturn conjunction Pluto in Capricorn has to do with things like, again, old structures that are either crumbling or they're standing like, again, like a mountain, sort of very durable, made out of stone, metal, etc. And so there was a restoration in Moscow. One of the iconic fountains there has just recently has been restored to its, I guess, glory of the 50s when it was originally built. So $18 million apparently was spent on that, and the fountain is called Stone Flower. And there was no fire on the fountain itself, but apparently nearby in some sewer system or something there was a fire, and there were pictures literally the next day after the fountain had opened. Of course, fountain is a water, right? Water feature. And that fountain was engulfed in smoke because of that fire. So definitely, again, the type of news that you would expect with that whole Neptune and Mars square, with the ongoing kind of strong influence of Saturn/Capricorn. There was also news about the healthcare epidemic, potentially, or I'm not sure if it's an epidemic, but about 200 plus students in California, university staff are under quarantine amid the measles scare, and that is something that again fits with sort of ongoing, and I'm not sure how big this would grow. Perhaps it's just a localized outbreak, but it definitely fits under Mars square Neptune. That fits with my prediction about some news about infectious diseases or rashes or fever, because again Mars has to do with this hot temperature, something to do with fever, and Neptune again is healthcare, things that spread through water or through body fluids. And when those things don't mix, there may be news about, again, some health issues that have to do with, again, either something that's infectious or induces fever, rashes, etc. And with Pluto and Saturn, basically they're in conjunction, or they will be in conjunction for quite a few months through 2020. That unfortunately often coincides with really large epidemics. So this may not be necessarily precursor, or I guess the news that something that, that there will be a measles epidemic necessarily, but these are the news that coming sort of when the conjunction between Saturn and Pluto is not quite yet exact, so we may expect more of such news. Again, could be this particular disease, could be outbreaks of some other diseases, but something that can be affecting a lot of people and may not be easy to eradicate. And in particular, like in the 80s when we had the, again, negative or stressful aspect between Pluto and Saturn, we had AIDS epidemic. So something that's like really requires taking a hard look at healthcare and treatments. Let's see, so there was also some news that I predicted, I predicted that there would be some, again, increased news about earthquakes, mudslides, and old buildings tumbling down. And indeed, last Monday we had this really huge earthquake in Philippines, and there were at least 8 people dead, if I recall correctly. So that was pretty big. Obviously, some buildings got damaged Actually, it's more like 11 plus people dead potentially. And there were some structural damages, of course, to the buildings. I also made, oh yeah, there was also some news about, business news about beverage companies. Again, beverages have to do with Neptune, and there was some news about Coca-Cola that they're looking to launch a coffee-infused drink by the end of 2019, and I think they had some similar drinks with, I guess, caffeine in some other countries, but this was news that, again, that came up last week, and I believe this might be slated for release in the US. And again, this is just some type of news to expect during certain aspects. So let's see. There was also news about, I guess, some sort of a trial in Russia of a floating nuclear power plant reactor being complete. Again, Pluto and Saturn building nuclear reactors, or of course could be problems with nuclear reactors similarly. And last week with the news, again, focusing here specifically on the fact that it's floating, and the aspects focusing on the fact that it's Neptune was involved. We see how the manifestation again fits with the transits. The only kind of concern here is that if, you know, there's some sort of say a company that is incorporated on a particular date, or say a building is constructed and has a grand opening on a particular date, like a dam or something, and the aspects at that time are really critical, this actually may not be a great thing, because when the transits in the future will come and make negative stressful aspects of that same place, that chart, there may be problems with that, you know, company, or that say product that was released, or that particular structure, which I did see in some dams where there was a dam, whenever the dams are, I guess, open officially, and whenever there are, say, Saturn aspects, transits to those important points in the, I guess, first opening of the dam charts, that there are usually some news about around that time that come out about problems with dams in particular. I'm sure that would be the case for other buildings as well, so something to keep an eye on, and maybe not schedule a release of grant product, or watch basically when you would want to schedule your important announcements, etc. So for China, I made prediction for last week that there may be some stressful news about either steel, metals, minerals, stones, you know, like precious stones, coal and mining. And at the same time, I was expecting that there would be positive news about shipments over water, Navy, oil, chemicals, etc. And on last Monday, on April 22nd, I saw that there were some news that actually were positive, I would say, for their like steel industry, that the futures, steel and iron ore futures rose 3% last Monday, because of the government said that they would maintain the policy of basically supporting for the economy, and that was, however, because of the negative news that the week prior they've recorded the worst weekly performance of those futures in several months. So I guess good news, bad news, but there was this increased focus on specifically steel and iron ore. For China, similarly, on Monday I also saw news about the successful, I guess, trial of their first home-built aircraft carrier, and the trials were at sea. So again, we're talking about this positive news about shipments over water. In this case, it wasn't a shipment, but it would be a ship that goes over water. So let's see. So I think this is about it for the previous week's predictions. So let's go over now to the week of April 29th. Ongoing influence, as I said, Pluto conjunct Saturn continues to be on, and it will be for several months. This week it will be felt the strongest on Thursday and through Sunday, so the end of the week. So continuing probability of earthquakes, major disasters, restructuring of large established corporations, basically shuffle in the government, where, you know, leaders removed or steps aside, old established leaders, companies getting, basically replaced, etc., as well as the probability of, like I said, healthcare epidemics and or violent terrorist attacks, government protests, etc. So that all is on. Continuing influence for Justice, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I still expect that in May, June, she may basically have extra stressful time when it comes to her basically health and or just being really busy or stressed out at work to the point where she may potentially step down. I haven't really heard any news about her doing anything in general, but I guess we would have heard if she had stepped down. So, and for China, continuing, again, increased probability of news about earthquakes, again, disasters, as well as oil, navy, pharmaceuticals, pollution, secrets, deception, and long-distance transportation, particularly over water or railroad, as well as international agreements and expansion. So that's, again, a kind of a background ongoing influence. So as far as the direction for the stock market for Monday, I believe, and I'm recording it on Monday, but I posted the predictions already the day before on Sunday on my blog at tolstunka.com, and my prediction was that the market would be going up about 65%. Today I already know sort of the outcome, and indeed it did go up today, April the 29th, as a sort of background influence for this week, lasting from about the 29th of April through about May 6th. Again, we have increased probability of earthquakes, mudslides, building collapses, accidents, etc. And this time it may be in particularly due to excessive winds and fires. And there may also be increased news about like really large merger and acquisitions involving companies that relate to steel mining, kind of minerals, coal, etc. And those negotiations or acquisitions may be particularly, I guess, tense, overly aggressive, or the opposite may happen. There may be some sort of stalling and kind of a butting of the heads, and things may be coming, I guess, to a halt because of that. For the US specifically, on Monday, I was expecting some minor negative news about business in the area of IT, high tech, electric cars, like power companies, aerospace, telecoms, etc. So the news may be about the lower sales than expected, maybe some concerns about the stability of the businesses or related projects, because either the business making too many changes or lack of clarity. I haven't seen any news about that. I have seen some news about additional whistleblowers coming up about, I guess, problems with Boeing sensor, but I'm not sure that even came up on Monday. It may have been before that. So I'll just have to review the news to see what, if any, of that have come up. So for Tuesday, as far as the market direction, I'm thinking it will be down about 60-65% probability because there's some stressful aspect on Tuesday. And in general, April 30th through May 1st, I think there may be additional focus on oil, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, navy, drugs, increasingly wet weather, basically water, again, Neptune-related kind of topics. Additionally, however, this week there may be additional increased influence of, again, influence of the aspect that relates to Saturn, which would give us the focus on mining, metals, minerals, coal, large-scale construction projects, and in this week, again, in particularly, they may be related to either military weapons or sports or racing, things like that. So there may be announcements of new projects by some large corporations and or some new governmental initiatives. And again, they may be related potentially, especially to military or sports or something that is very rash, made in kind of in a hurry, under a lot of pressure, made out of anger or due to protests, or there may be a new project announced, a new initiative announced that somehow elicits a lot of protests, again, maybe anti-government or anti sort of that project, or some corporation angers, either investors or users of a product because of these kind of abrupt, sudden, and, hard-headed changes. There may also be tensions related to agreements and contracts involving large corporations, especially corporations that again are either really old established or relate somehow to coal mining, steel, etc. And there may be additional problems such as accidents involving again places like mines, underground locations, or accidents due to earthquakes, mudslides. And as far as bad weather, we may expect increased either winds and fires, as well as rains and floods and maybe even tsunami. So those things may, of course, have in different places, but that's just the sort of increased theme for April 30th through May 1st. For the US, April 30th through about May 4th, especially May 1st and 2nd, I expect that there may be increased focus on, again, military, weapons, sports, fires, engines, fighting, and protests. So anything that's hot, anything that's kind of occurs quickly, anything that involves, again, heat or moving fast, such as, again, an engine or car, or, again, then racing comes to mind, or like fighting, again, could be sports, so it could be actual fighting as in a protest, and especially like pro or against immigration policies. We may hear kind of more about that. There may also be news about new project campaigns, leaders, or products in these areas. There could be new sports products or some famous athlete does something. And then particularly, again, there may be news about like immigration related to that, and or international locations or legal decisions. So maybe like, again, an athlete, there's some lawsuit and there may be some decision related to that, or if it's a military campaign and may occur overseas, or if it's a protest, it again may be against or for some sort of immigration policy. There may also be kind of focus on new initiatives that have to do with sort of expanding overseas or expanding international ties, but again, there may be done under some sort of a push or aggression, either to prevent that aggression or the kind of push for kind of signing some sort of a deal may be too aggressive and kind of put off the partners. Moreover, there may be some kind of a probability of there being too many negotiations or negotiations proceeding kind of too fast, under, like I said, too much of that hard-headed sort of pressure, or under too much, I would say, acting maybe in the less diplomatic way, but pushing for something too much. And again, it could be because there's so many negotiations going on at one time, too many partners or too many issues to discuss, and there needs to be, a fast kind of a moving, process. But at the same time, things may just be kind of out of whack because of, again, either something is happening too fast, negotiations are too aggressive, or there are just too many parties, too many laws to keep up with, and just things go kind of out of control because of that. For China, April 30th through May 2nd, there may also be increased news about various things, and particularly we may hear about some sort of news about rates, loans, debt, taxes, or insurance. And there may be, again, these news may be somewhat negative or confusing because of some imbalance, such as some terms may be kind of unfavorable, or some decisions may be kind of not liked, I guess, not well received, and or their decisions may be fine, but the communication about it is kind of is done the wrong way. So these news may be somewhat troubling, I guess, for the markets. So May 1st, Wednesday, I think that the market may also go down, but I'm not as sure of it. It's about a 55% chance, so slightly down. Then on May 2nd, Thursday, I believe the market may, or I expect that the market may go up. So about 60 to 65% probability for Thursday that the market would go up. On Thursday, I also think that there may be additional kind of increased news about law, legal issues, immigration, international trade, international agreements, contracts, foreign relations, long-distance transportation. So kind of, again, international community, including trade and or transportation. And the day, I guess, will probably be relatively sort of positive, as in like there may be optimism about how these negotiations are proceeding, or the laws, change in a sort of a positive way or favorably to facilitate international trade. The agreements, discussions about the agreements may be proceeding well. etc. So there may be optimism about that, which is why I believe the market may go up. At the same time, these discussions may be not looked favorably on by some large corporations, and or they may be at odds with some governmental regulations. So they may be challenging the sort of status quo, the old way of doing things. And so, either governmental entities and or large corporations may apply pressure, whether direct or indirect, through some sort of manipulation, blackmail, etc., or through taxes, through set tariffs, to basically not let those international negotiations and agreements to proceed so smoothly. So there will be some, kind of pullback from that direction. And there may also be increased news about secret dealings, manipulations, or some manipulative behaviors like hacking, spying by old established companies or on old established companies, and or involving governmental entities. And again, those may somehow impact international agreements or ongoing sort of international partnerships. There may also be increased concerns about taxes, insurance, and bank rates, which is interestingly coincides kind of with the time where I expect that China may make some announcement that again relates to banking, rates, debt, etc. So maybe those are related. However, overall, I think it would be a good day, and in particular, it may be favorable for companies that relate to communication and transportation. For those companies, there may be, as well as like in social media, car manufacturers, etc. There may be some increased news about those companies that are about international expansion. Maybe some new popular project or product is announced. Some improvements may be made to the products, such as a faster chip or better engine. Sales may increase, etc. For Friday, I think it would be a fairly, a switch from Thursday. It will be potentially a sort of a down day where things may again get tense. 60 to 65 probability of it going down, market going down on Friday. And then for the sort of span of times starting from Friday, we have May 3rd through the 10th, especially. This influence may be strong on the 5th through the 8th. There may be again increased probability of earthquake, disasters, military tensions, and a strong down move in the markets. In particularly, it would be the following week. So Monday, Tuesday, 6th and 7th of May may actually see a really strong drop move, and it would be followed by reversal. So by around the 10th, the Friday of the following week, things would go up. And at that time, again, next week, it would be probably a very important week. There may be increased probability of news about some major international agreements or contracts. So again, perhaps, that's for the following week. A little preview here, I guess. May 6th through the 7th, sort of stressful times, but then market going back up towards the end of the week. And that week, 7th through the 9th, especially, there may be news about some important international agreements. So I suppose all of that may be related. The more market moves, maybe worry about the agreements, and then the agreements coming through and things go up on a positive note. And these agreements may particularly relate to communication, transportation, retail, trade, as well as steel, minerals, metals, mining, and large-scale construction. And in next week, there may be increased news about the value of steel, metals, coal, and certain minerals, especially precious stone, maybe rare stones and things that are dug kind of deep from underground, and there may possibly be a drop in their value or price. So another range of dates that's important for end of this week, early next week, May 4th through the 6th, so Saturday through Monday, there may be increased news in the weather news on dry and hot weather, and possibly accidents involving moving vehicles such as airplanes, trains, and or problems with long-distance international travel, especially on Monday the 6th. And Monday the 6th, in addition to kind of being potentially a really bad down day, regardless of the direction, we will likely see increased trade volume or greater than usual market swings. And again, I'm thinking Monday the 6th, which is the next week. will be the tense day. There may be concerns about cash availability, earnings, and we may hear additional news, increased news about mining companies or companies that again deal with steel, minerals, metals, etc., coal. And lastly, for the end of this week, May 3rd through 4th, there may be additional news for China. And I don't know why I keep saying additional. There may be increased news in China about some important public announcements related to financial institutions, banks, or rates and earnings. And I think I already mentioned, for China, April 30th through the 2nd, we may hear about some decisions about rates, loans, debt, taxes, maybe insurance. At that time, there may be some, confusion about that, or some poor communication about that information. But then on the 3rd through 4th of May, we will continue hearing about financial institutions, banks, earnings, rates, etc. But those will likely be positively received by the public, and or they may relate to some sort of announcements of increased earnings, profits. However, there may be something secretive about that. Either this will be related to, say, tariffs, not necessarily secretive, but tariffs are not secretive. But on the 3rd through 4th of May, those announcements, again, that are positively received by the public, again, in China primarily, of course, public relates to the public of that country. The profits or increased earnings may be associated with either something like tariffs or insurance or taxes, or they may come from some sort of hidden locations or achieved through hidden manipulative means. So maybe, somebody was an agreement was achieved due to some manipulation, deception, or under pressure, and so it is favorable for China and received positively by public in China. And or the agreements themselves may be about things that relate to places that are underground, such as, again, mining, for example, or nuclear power. So let's see. But there may be something either hidden or something suspicious about that, or something that's just kind of is a result of some manipulation or some blackmail or some pressure. There may also be on the 4th of May for China, again, there may also be increased news about oil, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, navy, etc. And for those areas, the news may not be quite positive because the value or the price associated with those products may be questioned. Maybe some company will be questioning whether it's paying the right price for import of, say, oil, or there may be some issues related to pharmaceuticals. I've heard there was some pressure, I guess, on both China and India about them producing generic drugs, and whether maybe the quality of the drug is good, whether it is, high enough quality, etc. So there may be issues like that on the 3rd and 4th of May as well. So I don't think I have anything else. We have covered a little bit of last week, this week, and I've also given you a preview for next week, which seem to be slightly more important in terms of events and big market moves. But regardless, I hope you're taking advantage of some of these predictions, or at least watching them for fun. And don't forget to visit my blog at lossunka.com for all of this in written form, which may or may not be easier for you to follow. Okay, so everybody have a great week, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.